This episode of the Big Seance podcast is sponsored by Nuwati Herbals, herbal remedies from Mother Earth. Visit nuwatiherbals.com and use code BIGSEANCE, all one word, to receive 15% off your Nuwati Herbals order as a thank you. Again, that's nuwatiherbals.com, and Nuwati is Nuwati. So what tea will your host be pouring today? Find out a little later. And here's what's coming up on episode 155. Kimberly Friedmutter. Can you share with us who Kimberly Friedmutter was before hypnosis entered the picture?
She was the one that attracts people that scratch the side of her car.
See, I figured that.
Everything is good. Everything is right. And doesn't it feel good now to feel like this now? Everything is now. And that the whole...
Be careful. I still have to do this interview.
That's okay. I regressed myself the other day by accident. Accidental regression. And I was dying as a cold, starving dinosaur.
Welcome to the Big Seance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the seance.
I hope everyone is having a great holiday season. If you are a member of the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook, you know that just before Christmas, Karen A. Dahlman and I had a beautiful and memorable yet haunting weekend at the Haunted Castle House in Brumley, Missouri, with our lovely and kind hosts, Steve and Judy Skinner. We learned from each other, we told stories, we did some cool experiments, and our hosts had the opportunity to sit down with Karen at the Ouija board. The next episode will be devoted to the experiences we had that weekend, and I'm excited to share it with you. Today, I want to introduce you to Kimberly Friedmutter. I had so much fun in this conversation, and it was an education for me because it's the first time we've covered the topic of hypnosis on the show. She has a beautiful personality, and after the interview, I encourage you to check out her site at KimberlyFriedmutter.com, and that'll be in the show notes, and her book, Subconscious Power. But first, here's what I'm drinking. I just poured a cup of the Storyteller Tea by Nuwati Herbals. It's for memory and focus, and I need all of that I can get. It contains ginkgo, bacopa, eleuthero, ashwagandha, soy protein, ginseng, and other ingredients that I'm sure I mispronounced just as badly as those. I've told you this before. I was never a big fan of herbal tea until Nuwati, and now I've been drinking it almost every night. In fact, I've replaced most of my evening coffee with Nuwati tea. It's totally my new thing. So help me thank Nuwati Herbals for sponsoring the show by visiting nuwatiherbals.com. And don't forget, you can get 15% off your order if you use the code BIGSEANCE, all one word. Thanks, Nuwati Herbals. Author of the book Subconscious Power, Kimberly Friedmutter is a certified hypnotherapist, a member at large of the prestigious UCLA Health System Board, the American Board of Hypnotherapy, the Association for Integrative Psychology, the American Board of Neurolinguistics Programming, and the International Hypnosis Federation. She is also a certified master hypnotist and a certified neuro-linguistic programming trainer as well. And you're going to have to just get a good giggle out of this. And I'm going to let her jump in and correct me when I torture it. But it is Dame de la Champ of Sean de Rotisseurs. Hey, correct me. How'd I do?
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Kimberly is currently in private practice, dividing her time between Nevada and California, serving high-performing clientele who share her philosophy, expect the exceptional. Kimberly is a former model and actress, appearing with Bryan Cranston, John Stamos, and Olympia Dukakis in such films as Evil Obsession, Time Under Fire, A Match Made in Heaven, The Russian Godfather, and Elvis is Alive. She has also appeared in television programs including Entertainment Tonight, CNN, Fox, TLC, BBC, The Doctors, Bethany, Private Chefs of Beverly Hills, Art Breakers, Silk Stockings, LA Heat, Late Line, and hosted a hit talk show on the Howard Stern station KLSX 97.1 radio in Los Angeles. And I wanted to let you know that Kimberly's website is KimberlyFriedmutter.com. And if you want to know how to spell that, then you can just go to the show notes and it will be there. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi.
I am excited to talk to you. I'm honored to talk to you. I have just recently discovered you and have been watching YouTube videos and reading some samples from your book. We joked earlier that I'm pretty sure the book is going to arrive in the middle of our interview, which is funny, but I've been grabbing as many chunks of it as I can online, and it's just really fascinating. But first, we like to sometimes offer imaginary drinks to our parlor guests. So is there something we can pour or brew for you today?
Tequila rocks, salt rim, squeeze a lime.
Excellent.
Yeah, you can tell that's been ordered a few times.
I have a listener once who told me that she would volunteer and she was really, really interested in going back to every episode and indexing all the drinks that people wanted. And I'm not sure what purpose that would serve, but it sounds interesting. I'm sure that's a first.
Very Andy Cohen, bravo.
Until now, we've never devoted a lot of time specifically to hypnosis or hypnotherapy. And it's something I know that I'd like to learn more about. And on your social media, you once described your book, Subconscious Power, as a source that would teach you how to get the best parking spaces, how to find missing items in your home, and also how to determine if people are good for you in the short term, midterm, or long term when you shake their hand. Well, in my mind, at least my current understanding of it, that description fits right into the paranormal, spiritual topics that we like to talk about here in the parlor. Do you see it that way?
I do. And simply because the imprint that published Subconscious Power is also the imprint that published The Secret. And what's wonderful about anything that you are emitting out there, energy, is the opportunity for something fabulous to come back. My mainstay for what I do is to have a fabulous life come back for you. That's all I really want. I just want you to have this fabulous, easy, wonderful life to the best of your capability. And so when you emit out, it's just like anything else that operates on energetic waves. It's very, very important. And you'll see when the book arrives today during our interview, you'll see that the spirit component is, pardon the pun, alive and well in the book, because it had to be. Our sense of spiritualism and belonging and sometimes longing for spiritualism is all housed and based in the subconscious. That's the part of the mind where that lives. And so it's the perfect marriage of mind and what matters to have spirit be part of that. Do you have to? No, because the brain and mind are very scientific also. It's a nice marriage between art and science. I always say, like, if you went to a plastic surgeon, you would want a scientist, of course, that knows how to do it. And then the second thing you'd want is an artiste that has an
Mhm.
eye for it. And so, you could look at the spiritualism component as that artistry and that eye for it. That's a little extra something that, some people really rely very heavily on and others less, and some not at all.
I can't imagine that someone who is learning to be more aware of their subconscious and learn how to, well, learn hypnotism and hypnotherapy. I can't imagine that you wouldn't gain more intuitive abilities. Is that true?
Right, because your intuition is a component that we all have. I know women like to, corner the market on that and say women's intuition, but the truth is we all have it. And the degree of which you've refined it, or the degree of which you've honed it or practiced it, is simply that. Like anything else, some people are better at walking a straight line than others, So it's anything you're used to doing, or anything that you do more, the better, you do better the more you do it. So it's just, it's that.
Do you claim to have any, other than the ordinary psychic or intuitive abilities?
So luckily, yes, I do. And I would guess that most people think they do. I mean, you would know because I'm sure you ask everyone this question, but
Mhm.
I would think that a lot of people think that they're pretty special, and they're probably pretty right about that. I know I do. I've had, just too many things happen, and I can just feel it. And so a long, long, long time ago, I embraced it, and I started to again refine and develop that as well, and really listen to it, because it's all the same. So if your intuition, your gut, your primal instincts, all of those things that could be foretelling, or they could be epiphanies, or whatever form they show up for you, it's all coming from that part of the mind that has more information than what you have access to those impressions. So, for example, there's a little exercise I love to do with folks, and that's I'll take images, and so really just tear sheets from magazines, and I'll fold them up. They need to be strong images, so like, a picture of an avocado or a hat or a car or something like that. I'll fold it up, put it in the envelope, seal the envelope. I have people pick an envelope, anyone they want out of 1,000. They pick an envelope, they hold the envelope, they imagine what's inside, and this is remote viewing. So what happens is they draw on the outside of the envelope what they think is on the inside, and it is remarkable. Now, sometimes there's a complete miss. Sometimes there's nothing that's like what was inside.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. But the majority of the time, I would say in a large group, probably 75%, in a smaller group, higher, that the people find that there's some correlation. Case in point, I did this the other day, and there was a woman, and she ran up to me and she said, "Oh my gosh, look at this, look at this." And I said, "So let's look." So on the outside of her envelope, she wrote me, M-E. And then on the inside of her envelope, she showed me the photo of a piece of watermelon, a slice of watermelon. I said, "What does this have to do with you?" And she said, "My last name is Fruit." And I thought that was so wild, because you see how the subconscious mind works. It doesn't work like in the straight way. So then there was another woman, that same group, that ran up, and she wrote red hair on the outside of her envelope. Well, I have red hair. So I thought, okay, and she's watching me on stage when they're doing it. And so anyway, she opens it up, and it's a picture. And I remember specifically loading this envelope with this picture because I thought it was such a pretty hat. It's a hat made of all red feathers, and the feathers look like hair. And so I think it was like on the cover of Vogue. It was one of those magazines. So we had a giggle because her brain interpreted it as red hair. It's really that remarkable. I could go on and on. I could, tell you that, like, there was one gal who drew a circle, and then it had all these like sparks coming out of it, like a sun, like if you imagine the rays out of a sun. And we opened it up, and it was an ad for a diamond ring that had the sparkles shooting out of it, so they had photographed like how shiny and bright it was.
Uh-huh.
And the ring was the same size and shape as the circle she drew. So, I mean, it's things like that you just, you just say, wow, that's great. I'm really intuitive. When you can conjure an impression that you don't have access to, that's pretty special. Now, remote viewing, we know the government uses it. So it's a form of that, but it's a playful kind of fun form that you can kind of test your own intuition about images and impressionism.
I was really hoping that we would have some crossover today, but I did not imagine that we would get into remote viewing. That's awesome.
So everything that your sense of knowledge is so broad, and consciously, you don't want to sit in the house of consciousness because that's not where that information is. In fact, that information will second guess you and tell you, that you're not seeing what you see. I had a kind of a strange event happen when I was living up in Seattle. I was having my nails done. I'll just make it quick, but I was having my nails done, and there was a woman who I'm watching her, as you're just kind of daydreaming, and I'm staring out the window, and I see her kind of have her hand down by her pocket, and she's kind of running her hand along. And I thought, is she keying my car? Like, I mean, what an odd thing, right? And it wasn't even a thought I had. What happened was, the impression was, she's keying my car. That's the truth of it. It was that impression. She's keying my car. Then my conscious brain jumped in and said, oh, good heavens, you don't know her. She couldn't be keying your car. Why would she be keying your car? Don't think like that, Kimberly. What are you doing? All the chit chat. So I get my nails done. I leave, I go to the grocery store, I come back, I load the groceries, I get in, I walked to the grocery store from the nail places right next door. And then I get in the car on the driver's side, and I look down, and there is a 17-inch, like, to the metal thing, right? And I had even forgotten about it because it was so out of, not conscious thought. But the truth happened in subconscious thought. My subconscious told me she keyed your car, and I couldn't see the action. I couldn't see her hand. I just knew her hand was kind of down by her pocket, but I knew there was a knowing. So what I beg people to do, just so that you can have an easier life, is just imagine that you, like, for 1 week, just humor me, for 1 week, honor and follow through with what those intuitive hits are, and just use them to your ability. So, for example, how that would play out in that case is, I'd be, okay, she keyed my car. And I would either let it go and continue to have my nails done, or I would go out there and confront her. Turns out that I drove back up there, and I drove home and saw the scratch, and then I drove back up, and I found her. She was still there. Her car was still there and everything. And I called the police, and she had to pay for the damage. It was horrible because it was just, she wasn't well. There was something wrong with her. We didn't know each other. We would never, cross paths again, but there was something not right with her. And there was already something in the court system. And so, you have empathy in those situations. She just wasn't right. But the point is that everything can be handled at the time. If you think you left the oven on, if you think you didn't close the garage door, all of those things, and we all have them. We have them all day long. But if you devote 1 week to following through, then that convincer that you're right, because you know how life kind of tells you you're wrong a lot of the times, and then your own mind tells you that you're wrong a lot of the times, that logic and the PC factor that we're also embroiled in. And so what happens is you have that conscious override that says, don't worry, it's okay, don't do that, don't. But the reality is something does happen, and that intuition knows. It doesn't have to see with your eyeballs. It already knows. Fascinating.
How rude of your conscious mind.
I know. Well, I thought that's fine at a party, but this is out on the tundra. This is man for man right here,
So you subconsciously saw the woman and then were able to identify her without seeing her physically?
Do you mean after?
Yes.
No, I had suffered a loss of a baby, and I was in a very primal state. It was about a week before that, and I was in a very let me take it one step further and say that after this little bit of conversation, it'd be nice to follow through with how was I in that place at that time, because I want to take full accountability. I like cause versus effect. So we put ourselves at, how did I cause her to scratch my car? Now, people might scratch their head on that and say, that's a mind bender. But if we put me there, then what's good about it is that I was feeling very victimized by just the universe at the time because of the loss of that child. And or pregnancy, I should say. And so at that time, I was in a victim state. I was depleted. I was just so down that I couldn't find my way out of, or into happy or into any kind of brightness. When I think about what I was wearing that day, I mean, I just didn't exist. I was in such complete pain and, emotional upset and turmoil over that. So I can see how I stepped into that behavior, how I stepped into pulling into a space, because you have to think pretty remarkable that you can pull into a parking space. And then she pulled in later. I was there first, and then I attracted her next to my car. I mean, if you really put yourself in accountability, which is principle number one, is being fully accountable. How did I create that to happen? So I attracted a very disturbed person to park next to me, and then they followed through with what must have been my plan set in motion, which was more sadness or more upset or more damage. And, when you do that, it's very sobering because you're taking accountability. A lot of people don't like that part, but I highly recommend it because it's quite liberating. So it doesn't make it all about her. But then, bless my little subconscious, was like, your car just got scratched, or our car just got scratched. And then sure enough, and I drove back up there. Her car was there. She was getting in it. And I said, we need to walk over to the police station, which also happened to be there. Go figure. There's a nail salon, a grocery store, and a police station. Sounds like the beginnings of a bad joke. So sure enough, she said no, that she would not walk over to the police station with me. And I said, fine. And I just called the police because it's vandalism and, again, very disturbed and, a thing and all that. So I feel for her, and I switched my pain into empathy for her situation. And then that's how I got through it.
Well, this next question, I think, relates to that. And also after I asked that question, you also mentioned wanting to kind of follow up with more on that, and that might go into it. But in your book, you say that before you found your subconscious power, you were reactive to everything, a chameleon, constantly changing yourself to fit the circumstances. And as soon as I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds familiar. Mm-hmm. Can you share with us who Kimberly Friedmutter was before hypnosis entered the picture?
She was the one that attracts people that scratch the side of her car.
See, I figured that went into it.
Yeah. So here's the thing is that we feel, I'm sure that in the back of my mind, I have probably felt like a victim since birth. And I wouldn't have told you that consciously. I wouldn't, have said that, but there had to be that play in there because I was born into a family, and then I'll take accountability and say I chose a family that was very troubled. And so when you're in a troubled family, you learn to get along with anybody, anyone at any time so that you either don't get hurt or you don't get in trouble. It's like eggshells and you want to just keep a low profile. And so I was very good at assimilating into any group and any way, in any shape and form, to be a peaceful person and a peacemaker versus a trailblazer type. And the rage inside when you are a trailblazer type to be, kind of suppressing yourself so that others, so you'll be safe for all intents and purposes, is a tough one. And so what I say to people who are living with abusers, whether it's your parents or an aunt and an uncle or siblings or whatever, is get yourself out of there as soon as you can so that you can emerge as yourself, because you don't have to spend your life placating. You don't have to spend your life. And the whole reason I was even in Seattle was placating. And then I could trace it back and say, oh my gosh, this I was placating, that I was placating. I mean, my whole life has been placating, from a victim standpoint so that I wouldn't be victimized more. And what happens is you are victimized more. The opposite is true. So until I really just got that and said, wait a minute, I'm causing this. I chose this family. I chose this to be my journey and my lesson. So learn it and move on and learn to choose better. choose a better mate, choose a better career, choose a better place to live, all of these things, whatever better is for you.
I can't do an episode on hypnotherapy or hypnotism without asking you. And I guess I'll just bring up that I have never been hypnotized that I'm aware of. And I would love to know what it feels like. And I'm sure this could probably be a 6-hour long answer. What's it look like when a client visits you for, work with hypnotherapy? How's it feel?
Well, you're in luck. You're in luck. So first of all, you have been hypnotized. You've been hypnotized, maybe not professionally for clinical reasons and knowingly, but every time you stare at your refrigerator and it's open and you forgot what you went in there for, or you stare at a beautiful fire pit and the flames are dancing, or you are watching a kitten mesmerized, has you mesmerized because it's playing with a ball of yarn or something. Anytime that you are entranced, going to a concert, listening to someone, your favorite entertainer hit that note and you get goosebumps and you're just like, there is nothing else in existence but that person, that song, that moment, people with their phones on flame and the whole, and the movement and the swaying. You have absolutely been hypnotized. It's just they're your hypnotist. The whole idea behind the book was so that you could be in control of your own subconscious, therefore subconscious power. For example, when you go to the mall, their old saying, shop till you drop and all this, the reason it's so exhausting to have all this imagery in front of you and all this is because the eyes take in so many bits of information per second, if it's available, the sounds, anything metronomic. Even back to Seattle, moving there, I thought, why does everybody drive so slow on the freeway? And then it occurred to me that metronomic sound of the windshield wipers. Oh my goodness, they were all in trance. And that's all it is. It's just that, that's actually fast, but so it's that. And sure enough, driving to the beat of that, it's fascinating. Next time you go to Seattle on a rainy day, pay attention. Wow. It's pretty wild. So everything hypnotizes us. I could ask you to list for me your 5 priorities, and those would be your hypnotists. Fast cars, shiny cars hypnotize men. Small shiny objects hypnotize women. You see us get intrigued by the shimmer on water or the moon. All of these things are our hypnotists. Now, going back to clinical hypnosis, what I focus on is clients. It's very fun because my toughest ones, so they say, is, I've never been hypnotized. I don't think I can, or I have been, and it didn't, they weren't able to hypnotize me, or people have tried and, I'm so special, I can't be hypnotized. And I laugh and I just say, well, the more imaginative you are and the smarter you are, the easier it'll be to hypnotize you. And so who doesn't think they're imaginative and smart? And it actually is true, because all you do is you lay down, we go through a series of things. And depending, if someone's afraid of water, of course, I won't have them imagine that they're on a beach near the water, but that's like a one-off. But most, feeling nice and, so comfortable, and, your body just feeling like hot butter on a hot summer day on a hot pavement, just melting into the chair now. It's so supportive and this and that. And you start to get that very sing-songy way, and that everything is good. Everything is right. And doesn't it feel good now to feel like this now? Everything is now. And that the whole...
Be careful. I still have to do this interview.
That's okay. You really must get into it, or at least I must get into it with them. If we shot what I was doing on the outside with them, internally, it would be so funny, because I can't even imagine what I'm doing. My arms are up over my head, and I'm imagining it and creating it in their mind. And it's it's really a symphony of almost dance, almost, although I'm seated, but you really have to go there, because if you're visualizing it, they're visualizing it, I just really get into it. And so sure enough, I had a tough one, or she thought she was tough anyway, the other day. I started at 100 and I got to 86, and it would sound something like this. I would work through a nice warm beam of light coming through your crown of your head now, warming up the back of your neck, warming up your eye sockets, your jaw, everything feels so good, yada, yada, yada. And then I start with, 100, feeling the relaxation come into your jaw, 99 into your neck, So I worked my way to 86 out like a light, just out, out, out. And then all bets are off. Then you just start going into the business at hand that needs to be straightened out. If it's habits that need to be deleted or modified, if it's habits that need to be planted or enhanced, it can be a myriad, whatever you're working on. I do like to let them know, and I basically, share with them the list of things that we're working on so that they'll know consciously, because they usually don't remember most of it. Sometimes they do. Sometimes it's important that they do, so I'll put that in. Sometimes it's very important that they don't, if it's traumatic. And, you take it from there, but it's so easy. And I use an ergonomic chair. I like all the bells and whistles. I use them all. I use hypnagogic sound. I use, like I said, the ergonomic chair where your head is low and your legs are high. I use everything to my disposal because the real work is with the subconscious, not in the induction. So maybe it takes me 30 seconds to induce someone.
Do you ever get snoring?
Oh, all the time. Oh, all the time. It's so funny. Sometimes drool. My last gal was real cute. She said, "I didn't drool, did I?" And I said, "Oh, who cares?" Who cares? It's all good. But, because it is, and, heart rate changes and the breathing pattern changes. And I still to this day, as much of all the people and all the years and all of that, all the experiences, I still to this day just have a private little yes, the minute that the tough ones are out, I just get so excited because it's just another reinforcement of how amazing this protocol is. And you can experience the same thing yourself when you're waking up in the morning or just before you're going to bed. It's that really floaty time. It's that time and space where you're just so like meditation, much like meditation, except it's more of a zoning out in the sense that we're not trying to keep thought at bay. We're allowing thoughts to come. And so that might be in a sing-songy way, maybe just like the clouds that come in and come out, and just like weather changes every day. Now you start to feel this way, or you start to feel that way. Now, lots of nows, because we want the subconscious active. We want it participating now. Every good coupon has a date that you have to use it by. And so the subconscious, is very childlike. Oh, are we doing that now? Yes, now, so it's very reassuring. I did hypnotize myself one time while I was hypnotizing a client. That was embarrassing to me. The client didn't wake up. Thank goodness my snoring woke me up. I was so embarrassed. I immediately called. Well, first of all, imagine, so they're laying there, right? And so we're going and going. I can't even remember what it was for. And I had this beautiful Queen Anne wingback chair that I was using to sit in. And it has, the things that go along the side of your head. And so it was very easy for me just to tilt 5 degrees and, I have a pillow. And so my snoring literally woke me up. I wasn't talking anymore. My client was still out. The dog was out. The dog was laying on the office floor out. And I just couldn't even believe it. So I called the president of the American Board of Hypnosis and I said, "This cannot happen. This was just terrible." And so he gave me the remedy for that. And thank you to him again for that. Because
how much time had passed?
I'm not sure, but I'll tell you, I don't think it was long, probably like 7 or 8 minutes, but that's like an eternity for,
Mm-hmm.
I told my client when they woke up, I said, "Wow, that was good." For both of us. So I said, "Send me a bill." Right.
I thought it was so fascinating that you said in some cases you don't want them to remember
Correct.
what they experienced. What do you say to those clients where that's the case? When they come out of hypnotism, what's the conversation like?
Well, it's actually during hypnotizing them that you'll say, so they're induced, so they're hypnotized, and then you say you will have no memory of any of this conversation. This conversation is just like the weather, just like the wind, just like clouds floating away now, further and further and further and further and further and further and further away. So things like that, so that they don't remember it.
And then they come to you and you just say, "Hey, enjoy your day."
So when they come to, so there's a countdown the other way. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, feeling, so I do it slowly because, and then the other thing is I like for them to lay there for a while. One of my pet peeves with going out for a massage is that, okay, it's over, the massage is over, lights come on, and then they say, take your time, but they don't mean it. And then they say, here's your robe and here's your little slippers, but you kind of have to like get up and get out. And so I don't like to have people do that. I like for them to lay there, and I like for them to just marinate in it, and just because the last thing you want is a person coming out of trance and then have a conversation about anything that didn't have to do with the enhancement you've just put in. So for example, let's say someone came because they're anxious and they have anxiety issues. So we go through the whole thing and we go through scenarios in their mind while they're in trance. And when this happens, that will happen. When this happens, you'll react that way. When that happens, this will happen, and on and on and on, all these scenarios. And then you wouldn't have them come out of trance and say something like, so the next time that a bus roars past you on the sidewalk, you don't have to think about it. You don't want to now bring it into the consciousness. You don't want to re-hypnotize them into a problem. So I stay super quiet. I ask them how they feel. They never want to come back. They're like, can I go back where I was? I said, yes, absolutely. Just lay here. Is it time already? They always ask how long they've been under. They're always 100% shocked that it's been as long as it's been. Mm-hmm. Let's see. There's some other really fun things. Yeah. How do you feel? Very, not groggy, but very floaty. And this works great for like insomniacs and people who don't get a lot of sleep, because it's the first real rest they get in a long time. And so then, of course, you can imagine how important self-hypnosis is to someone like that, because you can hypnotize yourself so easily. You don't need a practitioner to do it. It's the guided part that people, worry that they can't do, for habitual change or whatever addiction. But yeah, it's the greatest thing. I'm kind of surprised that they don't teach it in schools. I'm not sure why that is, but you talk about a 100% sustainable, 100% natural, 100% organic, non-invasive, private, it's really the best thing going. And I wish schools did this, because you look at everything that's happening and it is all from the conscious mind. None of that's happening is from the subconscious. So the volume on our conscious mind is so cranked up and so turned up high to a dangerous level, the cackling and the sound and the yakking of the world. And that subconscious just keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And that's your true greatness is there. That's your dreams, your hopes, your idea, your spirituality, as we discussed, what's coming, what's beyond, where did I come from? Symbolism comes from there, emotions, memory, and the linear memory, how you store memories, all of those things. One important thing that I do when I see clients is I detach emotions from the memory of events. So for example, like, how in Africa they have the big 5 that you want to see. So there's big 5 emotions that are negative, and that's anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And of those 5, if you disconnect those from your events, then you don't have to have that. It's like the screensaver mode of this angst. That's very, very helpful for people. I talk a little bit about that in the book. The book is a great overview of everything. It's like a manual for how to run your subconscious. Like if I said, here's the machine, it's on your desk, and here's the plug, and here's the manual. That's what it was meant to be, was not to sell you something, but to give you the manual for it. You already have the component. You already have what it takes. Male, woman, man, doesn't matter. And age doesn't matter. The client that I just had yesterday regressed to the womb. We were disengaging anger. It was the first thing. Yeah, we were disengaging anger. And I say, the first time of which would allow the anger to release easily and effortlessly, what would be that first event, that root cause. And she went back to when she was in the womb. It was very powerful for her. And she thought to herself, when she came out of it and we were talking, she said, never in a million years would that have come. in a million years through normal traditional cognitive behavioral therapy. In a million years, because wasn't something that was conscious for her. It was a subconscious event. And even like there was a woman that I hypnotized who was expecting, and she wanted to know when the baby was going to come. And so the baby said 2 weeks from then, which happened to be on September 14th. This is a few years ago. And that baby was born to the minute, to the day, to everything that the baby said it would be born 2 weeks prior.
Wow.
To the second of the day.
Wow.
To the second. Because when the baby was saying 4, I said, is it light out or is it dark out? Because babies don't know time, right? So I just kept getting the number 4. And then I said, is it light or is it dark? It was light. And that was 4 p.m. because 4 a.m. would be dark, no matter where you are. And sure enough, at 4:00 p.m. on that day, her grandmother, who is one of my clients, sent over and said she had the baby and this is the baby. And it was to the second to the day. I couldn't believe it.
And you were like writing that down in my journal.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's in the book. I think it stayed in the book. Because those are important things to know. It's very important communication. And that's why when you shake people's hands, if you know if they're good for you now in the midterm or the long term. I also did that with a dog when the puppies were going to be born, and it worked the same way. Same everything. Yeah. And it was that was a week and a half later, those puppies were born.
Well, if you've gone back to the womb, what are your thoughts on past life regression?
So I have a lot of clients that past life regress in session. And that's one of the options with this kind of therapy is I don't care where you go where you go, and we honor that. So the question is, if I say, I know that you don't know, but if you were to know, when would that be, before, during, or after your birth? So when they say before, I say womb or womb or before. And then if they say womb, I say what month. If they say past life, I say womb or before. If they say before, I say past life or genealogical. In other words, how many generations ago, or past life. And so the gal yesterday went a few generations ago. Oh my goodness. I had one recently that she knew names and she knew places. And it was, she had been alive. This was, oh my gosh. And the man worked at a bank, and it was in England. And she jumped off a bridge. I think she was 21. She described what she was wearing and how she looked. And she jumped off a bridge. And so, of course, my husband, says, oh my gosh, you've got to look into this and see, start looking up and see if you can find these people, on the internet.
Yeah.
From all those generations ago. It was a banker and his wife, and she worked for them. And it was very interesting. That cleared up a lot of distress for her in this lifetime.
Do people have to have a goal or an outcome that they're looking for if they're coming to get hypnotized, or can someone just say, hey, I'm interested to see what comes up?
I get both, but I'm very expensive. And so people usually have a problem. And I think that's why. I think it's the expense of it. So I rarely get I get performance enhancement, because usually it's job related. It's an athlete that needs something, or it's part of an add-on to a protocol that was something else that they came for. If someone comes to me, I like to do all of it. So the presenting problem is what they'll come for. So let's just say, it's whatever. It could be 5 things. Well, I'll find 15 things that need work. And I get that list from their detailed personal history. So we sit down and we talk. It could be an hour, it could be 3 hours of time that they're telling me their story. And it's not really what they're saying, it's how they're saying it, because I don't care if things are really the truth. I care how they've been interpreted by your mind. So when it comes to historical things, parents and siblings and where they moved and when they moved, I don't care. I care how it relates to the problem that they created and built for themselves. And so, me, of course, I put them at accountability. How did you choose to, have this, that, and the other happen to you? And then what? And I say, yeah, let's play accountability, because if we do, we can change it. If we don't, then you're a constant victim. And that just, begets more victimhood. But the regressing happens oftentimes in getting rid of those 5 negative emotions. That's when it seems to come up a lot. I regressed myself the other day by accident. Accidental regression.
Is there anything you found out you'd like to share?
Well, it was interesting. I can be super fast with it. So I just started going to this place, and it was very important for me to know this clearly, or it wouldn't have happened that way. It was like a spontaneous regression that can only happen to a hypnotist probably. But my head started tilting sideways, like if you just were going to lay your ear on your shoulder. And through this mist fog that was all black and white, I couldn't see color. Through this mist fog, I saw these giraffes coming my way. And my head going sideways or tilting to the side was very slow. And as it was tilting, I thought, I'm cold and I'm hungry simultaneously. Not a good combination, cold and hungry.
Wow.
And I saw these things way far away, just their figures. So if you imagine white smoky mist and the black silhouette of them coming to me, and I could see these long giraffe necks with a little head, but I couldn't really tell what they were, and I didn't know why they were there. So I asked them, and this is a great tool for people listening, I asked them, can you come closer so I can see you? Because you can talk back to your dreams, you can talk back during hypnosis, you can talk back to your imagination, all of your visions, you can talk back, and it's there to assist you. It's showing up for some reason. So sure enough, as they came closer to reveal who they are, they were dinosaurs. They weren't giraffes. And I was dying. And I was dying as a cold, starving dinosaur. And my head, the reason it was moving so slow is because I had this long neck. Now, I couldn't see my own long neck because I'm looking out of my own eyes. But my head, I felt like, why is it taking forever for my head to hit the ground? Like the ground has got to be here somewhere. And can I tell you the value in that and why it came is because I never want to be cold. And I never want to be hungry. Now, that's kind of a big duh for most people, right? Because who wants to be cold and hungry? But I have a real thing about it. I carry sweaters in my purse. I carry food. I'm a trim, thin, fit person. Like I don't have a pound to spare. And I carry food in my purse. So much so that the other day I was in our house, and we have a guest room where I leave my purse. It's next to the office. And I walked in there and I said, ladies, come in here because there's something in here that died. Like something has to have died in this guest room. Sometimes if there's like a squirrel or something in the wall, or how things happen. And sure enough, it was meat in my purse. They said, Kimberly, there's meat in your purse. And I thought, oh Lord, how long has that been there? I don't know. I mean, I'm telling you, I carry food. So
you weren't one of those herbivore dinosaurs.
Clearly not. Clearly not. But I thanked the trance for having, because it did overcome me. I didn't think to set out to do this. But I thought, oh my gosh, that's the big epiphany. I don't have to carry sweaters. I live now. I'm not going to die as a dinosaur. I don't have to carry meat in my purse and leave it in the guest room. I don't have to do. One time we were at the airport and the TSA pulls this big knife out of my purse.
Oh, shut up.
No, I kid you not. And they said, and the guy looks at me and he's like, excuse me, like, hello, you can't come through with water. You certainly can't come through with a knife. And I laughed and I said, oh my gosh, I was so embarrassed. I said, that's my chicken knife. Because I would carry chicken in my purse. And then I had a little knife, that I would and I call it a big old knife, but it's like a kitchen knife. And I would chop up the little pieces of chicken for myself, or, if I brought my puppies along. I mean, I was so embarrassed. Can I tell you? I said, I assure you, I'm a smart woman and I know how to do TSA, and I would never come through here with a knife in my purse. If you'd asked, I would have laughed. But here's the thing is that's how much food I carry. I carry full Next time you see me, just sit back and we'll have a meal. I'm telling you, it is the funniest thing. So now I don't have to do that anymore because I know where it comes from. It gave me resolve.
You are sitting here talking to a professional fat man who loves to eat. And I've never once, well, of course, I don't have a purse or anything, but that is hilarious. And I can't believe I've never heard of anyone regressing to dinosaur age.
Oh, so I've actually had people regress clients to a speck of light.
Oh,
So
wow.
how you do it is kind of interesting when you start thinking, and if this happens to you and you don't know what you are, look down and look at your hands, look at your feet, see if there's fur or hooves or claws or whatever, that you have. Look if there's scales, or if you're a human, what are you wearing? That gives you an indication to the time period you're in. It's really a lot of fun. We don't know scientifically, is the mind conjuring this? Is it, really from a memory? Is it a thing? Nobody knows. I don't care because it's there for information. And we look at it as just more information to gather, kind of like a dream. There's a lot of debate in science. What is exactly, happening when we're dreaming? It doesn't really matter if you just take the goods from it. Sometimes it's pure entertainment, but I've had Land of Atlantis. I've had the dolphin situation, save the children are dying. I mean, all these, not from me personally, but my clients. And it's fascinating. And they're there. I mean, their voices change, their way that they see things and their perspective changes because they're verbalizing it. They're not just having a solitary experience with thought language. They are, verbalizing it to me. And I'm asking them leading questions to get more information of where they are and what's happening. All of that, the accents will start to come, and the inflections will change, and the demeanor, even the structure of the face, the way they look, and if they're concerned or if they're happy or whatever the emotion is attached to it. But it's fascinating. It's fascinating enough that it's hard to refute the idea that it's real.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
Wow. Well, your book is in 3 parts. The hidden potential of your subconscious is part 1. Part 2 is mastering your best life. And part 3 is leap of faith. And since my copy of the book is probably out on the front step, why don't you, maybe this could be in the form of a final thought to send us away with. But if there's something, that you would really like to make sure that we hit on from any of the other parts of the book that you'd like to send us away with, what would that be?
I think the part of drought, which is so prevalent now with people being depressed and feeling down, is that there's passing drought, there's lingering drought, and habitual drought. And drought is that state of lack where you just don't have it in you to function. And passing drought is, a hard time, a hard day. Like, for example, when the car got scratched and that whole thing, that would be passing drought. The habitual drought is the other end of the spectrum. And we all know those people that can't get out of their own way and the other shoe is always dropping and they just expect doom and gloom, right? And if you're not having doom and gloom, they'll make sure you do. And then lingering drought can be, maybe you need medication. Maybe you need, to take up a new job in a new town or something to get you out of that linger. So that could be a few years worth if you've had, sickness in the family or a divorce or something, where you just can't quite pull it together. But drought, there's always a way out of every situation. There's usually multiple ways out. And so I'd say drought is very important. The most important thing is to get to know who you are. Your subconscious is the you inside of you. It's your personality. It's your perspective on things. It's everything that's touchy-feely about you. It's whether you're happy, whether you're not, whether you love, whether you don't. It's everything. And so when I went towards it as a protocol in that particular part of the mind, I really embraced the fact that that's where the change occurs. And so my greatest hope in writing the book was that people could really get a good grasp on themselves and get to know themselves, because ultimately my goal is for all of us to have the most joyous life, be in and out with the most, beautiful experience that we possibly could have conjured. And we are responsible for that. We're responsible for our own comfort while we're here. And it doesn't have to be hard. I was raised that everything has to be difficult, and it's not the truth. And so one of my mottos is, what if it's easy? Because if you go into anything that's going to be hard, maybe you have an ailing parent, or you have, trouble with work or whatever, we have hard situations. But if you go into what if it's easy, it opens the door for it. It like pulls up a chair at the table for, this prospective, idea of easiness and ease, because you might surprise yourself and just attract it in to sit there.
That's beautiful. Where do you want to send people, like other than your website? Is there a place that people should go? And then is there anything coming up that you'd like to promote?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. So, I love podcasts. And so thank you for having me. Jillian Michaels, is health and fitness, and her podcast is coming out on Monday. So that's kind of a fun thing, but that'll be after. Actually, we'll miss that, I think, because yours is after.
Well, they can still go back and listen to that for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, I'm getting ready to launch an e-learning, whole site. And so that will be really exciting, because the book, it takes a long time to publish a book. And so I figured this would be the easiest way to be able to be accessible. And then it's me. And that's, kind of fun, I think, to really get it from, my mouth into your ears. It's really a different experience. And so the website for now, www.Kimberly Friedmutter, which is FRIEDMUTTER. And then, of course, all the social media channels. But that e-learning, if you just keep your eyes open for that e-learning site, and we'll do a whole thing. And I'll let you know when that's coming. But it's just time. We're in this really critical time of getting to know ourselves. And so I'm just honored to be of service in that way. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. And trust me, it's been a gift. It's been a beautiful conversation. And I also want to tell people to go find your YouTube page, because you have a lot of really good videos, and in part, it's just as much as, seeing the description of the book. That was one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to reach out to you as well. So I think people should check that out. You are wonderful. You rock.
Thank you. I appreciate you. You rock.
Thank you to the following super paranerds who support the show at patreon.com/Big Seance. Susan Davey, Jim Budd, Sonia B, Kim Robb, Natalie, David Rubenstein, Anne Marie Sullivan, Josia Lorenzo, Genesis, Justin J. Justin, Bliss is My Muse, Paula Mitchell, and Amy Park Gedicke. My supporters at the Parlor guest level, who can be found at bigseance.com/Parlor guests, are Linda of shimmeringmoons.com, Denise Sia of Mystic Moms Paranormal, Anne Rekovich of ozparatech.com, Christopher Kohler, Diane Rax, Sharon B., Bruce Williams, Peggy Hagan, Marion Hover Clairvoyant, Lana and John of Carbon Lilies, Nettie, James Wilfong, Dina DeCastro of Dina DeCastro Astrology, Glenna Becker, and Norman and Linda Keller. That sound you just heard was the above and beyond. There's not even a category for your level of support fireworks display, because I have 3 awesome listeners who support the show at the $10 level: Steve Skinner, Kevin Gilbert, and AJ Meredith. So thank you, Steve, Kevin, and AJ, and thank you, Paranerds.
For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com.
You can find and subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and just about anywhere podcasts are found. Do you have any comments or feedback? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how to get your voice in a future show. Or you can call my feedback line, 7755-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. Interested in learning how to promote and share the podcast? Go to bigseance.com/share. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.